got it. I got it on the disc. Huh? I've been there. I've been down there every day. I went home to take a shower. I was so nasty. I'm working upstairs. So, is that on? Oh gosh. Oh man. Oh. You can't have that picture because you did that to me. No way.
I told you.
All right, hello everyone, and we'll go ahead and get started. We want to thank everyone for coming out tonight to the Think Tullahoma 2040 Comprehensive Plan public meeting. Your input is the key to success, to have a successful comprehensive plan, so we really want to hear from you tonight. We want to encourage everyone here to social distance and wear masks, especially after the presentation. We'll be getting face-to-face with some of the consultants, so please wear a mask or social distance, and there's also hand sanitizer spread around. Water is in the back if you'd like a cold water, and bathrooms are through the lobby on the right. I'm sure everyone in here has already taken the community survey. If you have not taken the community survey, you can go to tullahomatn.gov. It takes just a few minutes. Complete that survey. To date, we've got nearly 800 comments back, but we need more, so we definitely want to do that. And I want to have a big shout out to Bel-Aire Bees for letting us use their facility tonight, and I really appreciate the school's partnership in helping us have these meetings. We couldn't do it without them. So for right now, before I turn it over to Phil Walker, I want to introduce Mayor Ray Noaes. Thank you.
Thank you, Winston. You know, this is great to be here at Bel-Aire because I spent a number of years sending a young man to this school. We lived around the corner here at on Bel-Aire Drive, so it's great to be here. Thank you for being here tonight. I want to recognize a couple of people. We've got our state senator in the audience, Mr. Brickett. Thank you for being here. And our city school administrator in the back, Ms. Catherine Stevens. Thank you for being here. And a special guest that we have tonight, my wife came along, so Ann joined us for tonight. So thank you all for being here. We are interested in what you think about Tullahoma 2040. So thank you for being here to express your thoughts, and though they will be very muchly considered. I want to thank particularly Winston Brooks for the work that he's done putting this on this week. He's been 4 nights in a row and doing the surveys and getting it done. So thank you, Winston, for a great job. And with that, I'll turn it over to Phil Walker, who's head of our Walker Collaborative, to talk about our comprehensive development plan and the work they're doing. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Appreciate that. How's everybody doing tonight? We're excited. This is our 4th meeting of 4 in a row, as Winston can vouch, and everybody else, our consultant team. So we feel like we see the finish line in front of us. Let me start off. I'm just going to do introductions. So as the mayor said, I'm Phil Walker. I'm a planning consultant. I'm based in Nashville, and I'm the project manager for the team. We've also got here Keith Covington. You want to raise your hand? Keith is an architect, a urban designer and planner, and he's based out of Franklin. We also have Liesl Gothert here, who focuses on transportation planning and is a Tullahoma native, Tullahoma High School graduate. And then last but not least, we got Randy Gross. Randy is with Randall Gross Development Economics, and he's based in Nashville as well. You can also see up here, hopefully in the back you can still read this, I don't know, but we got a list of the steering committee members and staff. And you know, it's important to have citizens from the community who represent a variety of different interests and bring different perspectives as part of this process to kind of guide the consultant team. So it's great to have them involved. So here's what we're going to do tonight. I'm going to give you a little bit of background on the project, you know, why we're doing a plan, what all it's going to entail as far as the process and so forth. And then we're going to talk about some initial observations, you know, each of the consultants looking at sort of their topic areas and what they see so far as we continue to research into Tullahoma. And then we're going to turn it over and really just have a conversation with you and find out what you'd like to see in the future for Tullahoma, and you know, kind of what the issues are that you'd like to be have addressed. Then after the sort of meeting part of this, we're going to switch into an open house mode where we've got these little topic stations set up, and going left to right. One is natural and cultural resources. The next one is economics and housing. The next one is mobility. And then the other one is land use and development. So each of us consultants will be at one of those. We got maps, and you can just kind of tell us your thoughts and so forth. And the dot, yeah, thank you. So the last map at the very end is a dot exercise map. And what we do, we have these little colored dots, and they represent things like where you live, where you work, if you work, where you go to school, if you go to school, where you play, and that could be anything from shopping to actually recreation, dining, things like that. So if you get a chance, if you could do the dot exercise, that would be great. So anyway, that's what we're doing tonight. So what is a comprehensive plan? So it's really a roadmap for the future growth and development of the community. And it's very broad in that it addresses a whole lot of different issues, which is why it's called a comprehensive plan. It's comprehensive in nature. And it addresses everything from land use and development to transportation, economic development, housing, public facilities, natural and cultural resources, those sorts of things. And every good plan will basically answer 4 questions. First of all, where are we now? So, you know, a snapshot in time. What are your existing conditions? Number 2, where are we headed? You know, what are the trends? Number 3, where do we want to go? And this is where y'all come in, because, you know, when we do this plan, it's not going to be our plan, the consultant's plan. It's going to be your plan. We're simply a vehicle to get you to where it is you want to go. So that's why all this public engagement that the mayor was talking about is so important, that we know what your vision is for the future of the town. And then finally, 4 is how do you get there? And that's the kind of details of the plan. So why is it that the city would want to have a comprehensive plan? Well, first of all, to build consensus, so you don't have 100 different people going in 100 different directions. Everybody's kind of on the same page as far as growth and development type issues. Number 2, your comprehensive plan is a basis for your zoning. And you know, one of the key pieces that'll be in the plan is what we call the place types map, and the text that and graphics that go along with that. And you know, 10, 20 years ago, you would call this the land use plan. And the planning profession has kind of gotten away from that, because there's a lot more to think about than just land use. And we tend to think in not just 2-dimension, but 3-dimension, not just land use, but also density, physical form, and character, right? So there's a big difference between a downtown, which is mainly commercial, and a strip commercial corridor like Jackson, right? So we come up with a place type map, and then that can be translated into zoning revisions, maybe some new districts, for example, that might be created. So So it's important for your zoning. Thirdly, to secure funding for projects. So, the city's constantly pursuing grants and has had a lot of success over the years in getting grants of various types, but it's a competitive process. Tullahoma is competing with Manchester or other communities all across the state and, even nationally at the federal level. So to be more competitive, it's great if you can have a project that you're seeking funding for that happens to be tied to a broader plan, a broader strategy. That allows the community to be more competitive. Number 4, to enhance quality of life. And not only the quality of life of the citizens, but also if you're trying to recruit business and industry, those people that make the decisions on where to locate, they're looking for a community with a good quality of life. Things like a vibrant downtown or a greenway system or bike lanes, things like that. So it's important also beyond just the citizens, but for business purposes. And then finally, for fiscal efficiency, so that you have a strategy on where to invest for physical improvements, road improvements, all those sorts of things in an efficient way. So this is basically a 5-step process, this project, and we've done most of task 1, the project kickoff and research. Right now we're doing all the visioning, all these meetings we've been having the last 4 days. Randy is doing his economic assessment and analysis work. The next thing we'll do, major thing here in town, will be in mid-November we'll have a charrette. And a charrette, if you've not heard the term, is basically a multi-day intensive brainstorming session that engages the public in a sort of a hands-on way to develop the key ideas for a plan. And the way that's going to work is the first day we're here, it'll be like a Thursday evening, we'll have a big workshop. And after we present our findings, we'll break people up into teams of roughly 8 to 10 people per team. Each team is at a table. Each table has a base map of the community and a set of colored markers, and the marker colors represent various issues. And we kind of walk the public through, these teams through a process where they come up with their own plan. And at the end of that night, each team takes a few minutes to present their key ideas. And that's kind of the springboard for us as the consultant team to then put together the concept plan over the next 4 days. And then on a Monday night, the subsequent Monday night, we'll present to the public the concept plan and find out what people like about it, what maybe they want to see different, and we'll go away and put the plan document together. That's task 4, and then provide that to the city, make some initial revisions based on their feedback, and then come back and present the plan to the public, and again get input and revise it yet again. So that's the process. Of course, the tricky thing, anyone can plan, not everyone can implement, right? We have a section on implementation, and we're always thinking in terms of implementation when we work on the plan. And so that'll be really important, that this is something that's going to be implemented. Okay, so with all that background, I'm going to let Keith talk about natural features.
Thank you, Phil. It's great to be here 4 nights in a row. This is great. Thank you for coming and being a part of this process. And I encourage you, and I know Phil and everyone will, just to stay involved. This is just really the beginning. So as we get into this, Phil mentioned that we're sort of kind of between task 1 and task 2. We've collected a lot of information, not only in conversations with you all and at public meetings, but through mapping data and things like that. And now we're going to start to spend some time between now and the charrette and analyze some of that information and present some findings back. So I'm just going to kind of give you a taste of what we're going to be looking at. From my perspective, or what my role is in this project, we'll be looking at the physical planning issues. And so we always start with the natural features of the community, because those natural features are not only assets, but they also help to define how a community grows, if it grows at all. So we'll look at things like topography. You have a broad range of topographic features across the community. You're at the edge of the Highland Rim. In the northern portion of the community, things are a little bit rolling and then lower, gentler slopes in the center of town, and then it just, boom, it drops off into the Rock Creek Greenway. So that's something, that topography definitely should shape what's happening in the future. We'll also be looking at your water resources, not only water bodies such as, the lakes that you have and obviously the creeks and other tributaries you have, but in particular floodway and floodplain, because those things directly impact what you can what can happen. And I think as most of us, probably know about what happened last weekend in Waverly and Humphreys County, it's probably fresh on a lot of our minds. And we know that Rock Creek, you can see it right there, that sort of blue band that's running north-south or generally north-south there. That's all, floodplain that's associated with that creek. And so, floodway and floodplain have a distinct impact on development, as do wetlands too. Which are mostly, in terms of the city limits, mostly associated with those tributaries. But we're also going to look at the built environment as well. So this map, and by the way, most of these maps, you can see the same information up here, so don't worry about trying to read on this screen here. But this map right here is your current land uses on the ground today based on the assessor, the county assessor's data, okay? So that kind of gives us a snapshot of what's on the ground today. Now, it's not necessarily what you can do, that's zoning, and Phil will talk a little bit more about that later, but this is kind of what's on the ground today. For us as outsiders, we're looking at patterns, development patterns. You all are here every day. You experience this. For us, we're learning. So, if you can see that in that map, a lot of that sort of pink area and that red area is commercial type uses. And you can see that those are really concentrated in your downtown and along your major corridors, in particular, North Jackson, right? We know about North Jackson and the character along it. But then things quickly kind of drop to single-family residential just off of those corridors, and then to more rural and even agricultural lands to the edges of your community. And that's all really, really important because, what happens to those lands in the future, okay? And so that'll be something that we're looking at. And one thing that I want to mention also about land use is we don't think about just land use anymore. Most communities are just as concerned about the form of development and the character of development. And so we'll be looking at some of those design issues that might, could be, tweaks to your zoning ordinance and things like that to improve that over time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Liesl.
Thank you, Keith. All right, so I'm going to talk about mobility. The transportation network is very important to a community for lots of different reasons. The map you're seeing up here behind me, that's illustrating the functional classification of the transportation network here in Tullahoma. These are your larger roads, so your arterials and your collectors. There's over 180 miles of roadway in Tullahoma currently. Roughly 70% of those are local streets, which means they simply provide access to local neighborhoods, individual parcels. Then you have 14% are collectors, so those collect traffic from those local roadways and disperse it out to your more major roadways, your arterials, such as your North Jackson or Wilson Avenue. There are also 16% of that mileage are arterials. And then the next piece of information that's important to gather from functional classifications is that informs the design of a roadway. It also tells us a little bit about how that roadway functions, so whether or not it may be an important component to regional mobility. And then we also taken a look at existing traffic volumes using those 2019 volumes, of course, given the pandemic. And the way that we have access to that information is we have access to the Tennessee Department of Transportation, to their roadway inventory. So that includes number of lanes, whether or not sidewalks are present. But they also have a great system of count stations. Some of those count stations collect data continuously throughout the year, while in other locations they simply collect once throughout the year. So we have access to all of that information that we're able to evaluate. Obviously, you all know some of those higher volume roadways, just given kind of the density and the different types of uses along those corridors. So those North Jackson Street obviously carries some of the most traffic, as well as the highway out towards Manchester. Okay, bicycle and pedestrians are also a very important component to mobility in a community. It's important for quality of life. It's also important for equity. Not everyone has the ability to drive or access to a vehicle, so ensuring that folks can safely walk and bicycle around the community is important. So based on that TDOT inventory, we know that there's about 35 miles of sidewalk currently in Tullahoma. I should also say that back in 2019, through a TDOT grant, Tullahoma did develop a mobility study. So there was a lot of planning and public input that went into that effort. So we will be carrying forward those recommendations and evaluating, as well as adding any additional needed improvements that we hear from workshops like today. There are also 2 state bicycle routes. You may not know that. Those are essentially just roadways that are signed with those little green signs, but there are 2 that cross through Tullahoma. One of those is heading out towards Normandy, that highway, as well as towards Manchester. We're also evaluating greenways. Those can be an important component to mobility, not only for recreation, but it could also provide an important connection to resources. So if you think about Cedar Lane, how there's no sidewalk continuously along there, but there is that Great Creek that Keith had mentioned that continues all the way up to Kroger. So for example, if we were able to extend that greenway, that would provide some great access to some of those resources up there while being off of a roadway corridor. So those are some of the issues that we'll also be looking at as well. And then utilities. That's also an important component to development. So whether or not parcels are on city sewer or on city water certainly influences whether or not folks see those parcels as attractive for development. So we will be looking at those areas that may be currently developed and unserved, or areas that may need to have service to it. And then in addition is internet. That's a really cool thing about Tullahoma that folks may not know, is especially for a smaller rural community like Tullahoma, is that in 2013, they became a 1 gig city, which just basically means we have really great internet here in Tullahoma. And that makes it attractive to businesses as well as residents as well. Okay, turn. Yes. Sure.
I'm not sure what, it looks like the brown is ADC. What
Yes.
are those other brown areas?
Sure. So the ones in the red that are highlighted, those are simply showing areas that don't have as much broadband access, the speed really. So those are just kind of highlighting those areas where improvements could be made. Yes, ma'am. Turn it over to Randy.
Thank you, Liesl. I'm Randy Gross. I'm the Economic and Strategic Planning Consultant as part of the team. And so we're just providing some initial observations on your economic base as we move forward. And currently in Tullahoma, you have about 12,000 jobs in the city. It's a very diverse economic base, but some of the leading sectors are healthcare, retail, as well as professional and technical services, manufacturing, and also accommodation services, which includes restaurants. And you're well aware of some of the major employers like AEDC, which really does drive the local economy, but also companies like Coca-Cola and Tennessee Apparel and some others, Wisco Envelope, that are busy locally. Over time, you've lost some jobs, about 2,500 since 2002, between 2002 and 2018 or 19. A large number of those were in manufacturing, which sort of mirrors some of the trends nationally in terms of what has happened to manufacturing jobs. But as a result of that, you've had a falling share of your regional economic base. And by the region, I mean your micropolitan area, which includes Coffee County, Franklin County, and Moore County. So for example, in 2002, Tullahoma had about 40% of the jobs in that 3-county region. By 2010, you had about 35% of the jobs in the region, and by 2018, you had about 29% of the jobs within that 3-county region. So you've had a shrinking share of the job base within the micropolitan area. Now, during the pandemic, there was a huge spike, as you can see on that bottom chart, in terms of unemployment, which peaked at about 21% in April of 2020, as it did nationally, but it has subsided substantially since then. Despite the loss in jobs over time, you've had growth in certain industries. So for example, management services, tourism, healthcare, administrative services, and public sector, those sectors have all grown in terms of employment. Management services, for example, employment has grown by about 141% over that period. And then you've had modest population and household growth over the period as well. Since 2010, actually we have the newest numbers from the 2020 census, which were just released recently. You have about a little bit over 20,000 people within the city of Tullahoma, which is a 9.6% increase since the 2010 census, or a little bit less than 1% growth per year in population. Household growth has also been fairly steady. Household incomes have also been increasing, so the combination of household growth and income growth is very good for supporting consumer, retail, and other types of activities in the local economy. And also you have about 25% or more of your adults have a bachelor's degree or higher level of education, so that also means a highly educated population does help drive economic growth. So with that, we'll go on with questions about zoning.
All right, thanks, Randy. So, you know, Keith talked earlier about existing land uses. In fact, there was a map he had that looked somewhat like this because there is a pretty strong correlation between the two. But whereas he talked about what's on the ground now, this is all about the public policy side of it with existing zoning. And right now, you've got, and you can see all of the different, the different categories of zoning. And it's a fairly limited range that you have, and one thing that may come out of the plan would be to come up with some new districts just to give more alternatives on how development's done. So if you look, the C1 is your commercial downtown area, kind of right in the core. C2 is a commercial highway, that's the red color, and you can see it going along Jackson and the other streets, especially Carroll. And then there's also, it's not mapped up here, and there's only a few, but the neighborhood commercial, that's a very small scale commercial that can fit into residential areas. The two purple colors, light industrial and heavy industrial, I-1 and I-2, and then you've got 4 different residential districts. The lowest density, and that's like a minimum 12,000 square foot lot, is the R1, and it's that kind of light greenish color on the map, and so that's the majority of your community as far as any particular zoning district goes. And then the most dense would be the blue, which is the R4, and that allows things like multifamily. The dark green, and those areas are kind of peripherally on the north, are agriculture. And then there's this one area, maybe more, but only one big area right there, which is OS1, which is an open space development where you have smaller lots but more open space.
Wasn't that Short Springs?
Oh, it might be. So I wonder why that's zoned OS1. I'll have to look at that. Thank you. Yeah, you're right. That is what it is. Yeah, we'll look at that. So, and that's one thing we are going to do is evaluate. I mean, now we just have a general handle on what are the districts and where are they, but not sort of the details. So thank you. Also, you know, another issue is your historic resources. You've got 2 National Register districts that exist right now, the North Atlantic Street District. And by the way, what you're seeing on the map are not the National Register. Those are potential local districts. But National Register districts are the ones that they're kind of honorary. They come along with financial incentives if you rehabilitate a historic building that qualifies. But it doesn't offer any kind of protection. Like if someone wanted to tear down a National Register building tomorrow, they could do that as long as they got a building permit. However, the way to protect buildings, if you want to do that, like particularly say the downtown area, would be local historic districts, what they consider historic zoning. And it's interesting because you've actually got an ordinance, a preservation ordinance on your books. It's already been adopted to set up the whole program where you would designate districts, have a commission that reviews development that might occur, you know, alterations to buildings and that kind of thing. But the trigger's never been pulled on actually designating local districts. So what you're seeing on that map is in the past, people have looked at some potential historic districts that you could have. So one other issue too, before we're about to kind of transform into the discussion part of the meeting, but one other issue that we don't have a slide on, but it's one that's kind of bubbled up to the surface as we've gone into the project, and that is addressing climate change. And that's something that more and more communities in the course of doing their comprehensive plans are doing, is looking at climate change. Things like not only how do you avoid adding to it, how do you avoid adding to greenhouse gases, but also how do you deal with the impacts of it, such as flooding and so forth. So that's something that we're going to add a section to the plan on that. So with that said, we're going to go ahead now and just basically hear from you. And I think the first thing, a couple of things. One, I'd like to hear, what are the issues that you're most concerned about, and what do you want to see come out of the plan? And also, just what's your vision if you could, fast forward 10 years down the road, what would you like to see in Tullahoma? What would change? What would be different? Or stay the same is what I'm trying to say. So anyway, anybody want to come up? We got a microphone right there, and we have to have the mic for recording purposes. But yes, ma'am, that'd be great.
My name is Sarah Fitzgerald. I'm elderly and have lived in this area for quite some time. The things that I'm most concerned...
time out. I'm being told, should she get closer to the mic? Yeah, if you could speak. And you might want to even pull it down a little bit. Perfect. Thank you so much.
The things that I'm most concerned about are housing. There are hardly any rental area units available for people who are moderate or low income. I'm also concerned about the fact that we have tended to become quite ghettoized in this town. I would like to see more integrated type housing, not just racially integrated, but income integration. I think that's very important. I'd like to see things like accessory dwelling units available, tiny houses, different things like that. I think that there's a lot of things that we could do. The other thing is kind of a personal issue that I have, and that is that the classic definition of a stakeholder for an organization is customers, employees, suppliers and vendors, shareholders, government, and community. I have noticed that you are referring to stakeholders in your meetings as if they're this small, compact group, and I would like to know your definition of stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who lives in Tullahoma or even lives outside but works in Tullahoma or visits Tullahoma is a stakeholder.
Yes.
Yeah, I do agree with that. Yeah, and I think when we use the term stakeholder, like in this context, we've had a series of, quote, stakeholder meetings. Those are usually meetings of up to roughly 10 people, and you do a deep dive on one particular topic. Like, let's say you get a bunch of, like the utility companies, getting them together or whatever. And we use that term stakeholder, but it was in kind of that context. But I agree, it should be viewed broadly.
I think it's a lousy term to use.
Okay, what would you, do you have another option?
Representatives or special interests or something
Some people
else.
complain about special interests, like that's got to.
Kind of sounds like you're leaving the rest of us out.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Good point. And yeah, right, just citizens. By the way, just so you know, on the housing issue, we've been hearing a lot of what you said, the fact that it's a kind of a narrow range of types of housing. And fortunately, Randy, our economist, is looking specifically at housing. And so we'll try to tackle that issue of coming up with more diverse types and affordability. And I like your idea on the, spreading things around more. Thank you. What do we? So I don't know if I should move or. It's not you. It's not me. Okay. Usually it's me. It's what my wife says. It's you. Next person? Anybody?
Well, I would like to, my name's Susan Finger. I'm a stakeholder and a citizen. You cannot make a left turn in this town. we don't need, I don't believe we need more red lights, but you can't make a left in this town, can you? Not really, yeah. So, yeah, and
So in
you're,
other words, traffic congestion. like
you
too
are,
much, you
yeah,
think?
you're addressing traffic, and
Yeah.
I've seen the map with all the
Right, and are there
collisions.
some particular, and I know it looks like you have a long list,
No, I
but
don't
just
have
any particular spots or just?
Jackson's awful.
Okay.
Jackson's awful. Cedar Lane's getting pretty bad, too.
We hear a lot about Cedar Lane,
Yeah,
yeah,
Cedar
and the
Lane's
need
good.
for sidewalks.
They do need sidewalks.
Okay.
I'd like to see more electric car charging stations. We have one at TUB, and it's free. I have an electric car charger at home, so I wouldn't really use one here, but the one I have used at TUB, or tried to, was broken, and I wouldn't spend enough time in that office to actually charge a car. But if we have a lot of people coming into Tullahoma from other cities to shop, and the mall or some of the shopping centers, if somebody could charge their car here, I think that would be an asset for us. There's a Jackson streetscape plan in the works, and I really hope that will be added to this comprehensive plan, and that both of these will be funded, because we have planned, like you said before, and they're on a shelf somewhere dusty. And that with the Jackson streetscape plan, that would improve the tree canopy. What I'd like to see in 10 years is more tree canopy. I drive up and down Jackson and Lincoln all the time, and I'm like, well, one tree could go there easily. I just read an article not too long ago about the need for public, private, and government cooperation, and I know that downtown is interested in beautifying downtown with trees and plants. I would hope that Jackson Street vendors and businesses would get on board with that too, and join in on that effort. And on that same note, we have an ordinance, a landscaping ordinance for new construction requiring trees and bushes and, landscaping plan. And a lot of time it turns out it's just a box that's checked. Once that box is checked, they get to build, the plants die, they're off the hook. And I think that's wrong. And on the environmental thing, styrofoam is driving me crazy. We need some solution, either a recycling program here in Tullahoma for styrofoam specifically. You can take clean styrofoam fast food containers to Publix, but it's a small thing, and they don't take peanuts or packaging, that kind of stuff. So there's got to be something that there's got to be some way to recycle that, or at least do something with it. I noticed you didn't have the land use or the zoning for Franklin County.
Yeah, that was a GIS data issue.
Yeah.
Right, Keith?
Oh, you do have it? Oh, but you did get it, because
okay,
I was
yeah.
going to tell you
Yeah,
where
we've
you might
got it
find
now, I
Yeah,
guess.
okay. And fund the plans. I mean, plan, but implement these plans. We don't want to waste our time again. I'm enjoying this. I think we all are. I'm glad to see all these people, but we've all done this before. Transportation, comprehensive. So, yeah, I hope that the city of Tullahoma will implement this plan. And I wouldn't mind paying a little extra to get it done, so especially the traffic and the trees. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And that was quite a list and a lot of different things. I'm trying to remember a few that well, that would be good actually if we could get that. But regarding plans that have been done, like for example, the bike ped plan was done very recently. But that's something. There are a lot of the issues we hear brought up are in that plan, and so we're definitely going to look at what's been done before and incorporate it where it makes sense into our plan, and that's probably in a lot of cases. The electric, the charge stations for electric vehicles. I think that's a great idea, and we're always looking for ways. How do you make Tullahoma more distinctive, stand out, feel progressive? We know it is progressive, but everybody might not know that. Yeah, and I think those charging stations, that's a great way, not just because they're important to encourage more electric vehicle use, but also it's a way to kind of distinguish yourself. So thank you, great stuff. Sure, that'd be great. Whoop,
It's
like,
kind of
suck 'em all.
shorthand.
Okay, super, thank
My name is Stephen. I've been in the information technology business for more than 45 years. I moved to Tullahoma from Chattanooga in the late 80s, and although my work took me to great distances from Tullahoma, I chose to keep my home here. And when my friends from other places ask me why I live here, my standard answer in the past has been because it's a good place to raise kids. Growth is a natural thing for any organism, including a city, and we should not be shy of allowing that to happen. I think we're wise to plan for it in advance. I think we have lots of good minds on the project. My only concern is that we retain what is good about Tullahoma, its history, its community, its one-on-one community, individual attention to students in the schools, schools in every neighborhood, a very responsive local government, the best minds in our community attracted to those jobs, although they are often not very rewarding. And of particular concern to me is that we stay on top of technology. The availability of technology to the public is critical to our growth in every other area. Government naturally lags behind commercial and residential entities, and that is not a bad thing because those guys get to test it and see what works and what sticks, and we don't get stuck with some technology that is out of date 2 years from now. So those are my concerns, my suggestions, and I'm anxious to see the resulting report from this effort.
Great, thank you very much. Yeah, so don't lose all the things that make it special in technology. Thank you. Anybody else?
I moved here in 2017, so just a few years ago, and brought my children and my family. And the most surprising thing when we came to town was that there are no school buses. We had grown up in I had grown up in a slightly larger city, but we had school buses. And thinking about the amount of time that parents are having to either leave work or not do other productive things in the community and sit in line and wait to pick up their child or drop their child off, which is not quite as big of an issue because the schools really have figured out how to do things reasonably well. But thinking towards the future, going back to the prior speakers' thoughts about growth and making sure that we're planning for growth, well, that big traffic jam waiting to get into a school is only going to get worse. So what are we doing proactively to see that that does not get continually worse? And to add to that, there are certain spots, one that comes to mind immediately, where children have been hit by cars. So the alternative to picking your child up would be to either have the kid walk or ride their bike. But if they can't do that safely, then that's not really a viable alternative. And I certainly think that the city could do a better job when incidents like that happen to address how they are going to get after it and make sure that that does not recur. Going back to the prior speaker's comments about IT and technology and staying ahead of things, one thing that we're in a unique time having gone through a fair amount of this pandemic, and there are many things that have evolved through this time, including the future of work. It looks a lot different for the skilled workers that we might want to attract to Tullahoma to really enhance and make sure that we're staying better on the technological forefront of things. We need to think about how we can attract those people, because they don't have to come here anymore just because company X or company Y is here. They now have flexibility to go where they choose. So what are we doing right now? Because these people are making decisions about where they want to live right now, and especially with how expensive housing has gotten, not only here, but all over the place. So think about those super expensive places. Tullahoma, relative to some of those places, can look really pretty attractive to them. And so what are we doing to market to those people, to advertise the great things that we've already done, like gigabit fiber to your home, which is imperative in this kind of an age. I mean, we're a small community, but we have really solid infrastructure in that regard. I have more internet options here than I did when I lived in Houston, Texas. And so, and more competitive pricing. So I think there are some really good things. How are we making sure that we're attracting that talent to our community to help us stay at that forefront? So I hope that the committee takes those things into consideration. Thanks.
Thank you. And regarding, jobs and technology and all that, we are going to have an economic development component to the plan, so it'll definitely address all that stuff. On the safety issues with, well, first of all, the school bus issue is one that's not in the city's control, it's the school districts, but it doesn't mean we can't, keep them reminded of that issue and look at the fact that now, since there aren't buses, what are the implications for traffic, for pedestrians, safety? We have a map, in fact, it's over here, that shows accidents that have occurred, including with pedestrians and cyclists as well. So, we can start to identify what are the problem areas and make that part of the planning. So thank you. Good stuff.
Yeah, I think the one thing that I would say to what you just mentioned, and the fact that school buses are maybe under the purview of the school district, yet sidewalks and other infrastructure is responsible of the city. Those are the alternatives as far as transportation to and from school for children. And so if they're not being looked at in a comprehensive way with the school board, then something needs to change so that they are looked at comprehensively.
Yep, I agree. Thank you. Next person.
Get this mask off. I'm Jerry Sperling. I live at 108 Hamilton Lane. Two things: traffic. I use Cedar Lane in the morning and the afternoon. In the mornings, we get a lot of traffic coming from Moore County, and it backs up, and people cut through First Avenue trying to go around the stoplight. Afternoons, same thing, coming from the north side of town. I've seen traffic backed up to the bridge at the creek. People again cut through that neighborhood, First Avenue, McKellar Drive. So that's a dangerous situation. So I understand that Wilson Avenue has a planned widening from Cedar Lane to Jackson Street. Are those two intersections from the north and south of Cedar Lane, are those intersections included in that widening? It would be a good time to take care of that problem.
Right, so I'm seeing Liesel nod her head yes, so apparently those are part of that project. And by the way, we've been hearing a lot about Cedar Lane. It comes up every meeting, so yeah, we'll be looking at that.
Okay, second thing, surface water drainage. I assume you will be looking at that.
Yes, sir.
When I first moved to Tullahoma and was looking to buy property, one of the old timers told me, said, Jerry, Tullahoma is one of the highest swamps in Tennessee. Said, you need to wait till it's been raining hard for a day or two and then drive around in the rain and look at property. And that's what my wife and I did, and we're on high ground. We have a lot of water that runs by us. But, I like the idea of the rain gardens that we're being proposed for Tullahoma. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, the whole idea of green infrastructure where it's, rain gardens, bioswales, where you're not always just letting everything drain and get piped somewhere, but letting nature kind of absorb and, wetlands that filter out pollution and all those things. So we'll be looking at that.
But I've been in Tullahoma since 1958, off and on. I've seen the town grow, and I've seen water run in a lot of different places. So some not so desirable.
Yep.
So good.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm Greg Sandlin. I attended the Monday night event at Robert E. Lee, and then I got some one-on-one, as a planning commissioner, I got some one-on-one time with y'all, and that's been helpful. But I've had some things turning in my head that I wanted to say again. And one thing, I've worked at AADC for 20 years now, and we've been in a hiring mode, especially the last 5 years or so, and had a lot of retirements, and a lot of young engineers have come in. The vast majority of those young engineers, usually single, they moved to Murfreesboro. And I might have done the same thing at 23. But one reason they go to Murfreesboro is they can't find apartments here. I think we need to really look at that zoning issue and plan that out. And then we need good first-time home purchase options. And then your second home options, we've got those. We've got a lot of those. So that's one thing to really to impact Tullahoma and to impact the base, because we end up losing a lot of those engineers. They're commuting 45 minutes and they find another job. They haven't invested in the community. And that's a problem for our long-term strategy at the base. The next thing, I think this has probably been said a lot, the mobility, opening up commercial property, but look at widening Cedar Lane even further, down the, going toward Clement. I'm sorry?
I don't think that's going to be possible. I think
But-
the parcel lines run right.
No, it would take some planning, One thing we could do really in the short term is, right now where William Northern Boulevard comes into Cedar Lane, it's a weird horseshoe scenario. We need to pick a side, straighten it, and just eliminate the other side. And we might need a traffic light in on Cedar Lane, but something that's logical there. Another thing, we need to make Tullahoma more welcoming, I think. The Rotary Club of Tullahoma in 2005 put in some welcome signs coming in Wilson, I think coming in from Winchester on 41A. We need to do some more of that. We need to make it where you're coming in from the main arteries into Tullahoma. You're welcome. Something catches your eye.
So you have a sense of arrival, kind of an entry statement.
I've heard someone said recently that they were in Tullahoma, but they didn't know when they got in Tullahoma. All of a sudden they're just in Tullahoma. Something that catches your eye a little bit, that makes you, gives it a sense of boundary, and you're here now. So that's another thing. I think we've made some progress on this, but having the legal process to condemn a building that's dilapidated, and we've made some progress on that. So that may be being tackled already, but we maybe ramp that up a little bit if we need to. There's one building in particular on 55 that I guess the owner just walked away. It's just a mess, and you don't want that to be seen when you're pulling into Tullahoma.
Right.
I think that's what I had. I just want to share that.
Thanks, Greg. That was a lot of good stuff. Thank you. Anybody else? Yep.
My name is Daniel, and I've lived here my whole life. And one thing I've noticed as far as traffic problems go is Cedar Lane. You know, and I've said for years, you know, everybody said, you know, Cedar Lane's our bypass around Tullahoma. Well, that bypass is no longer working. I mean, it's backed up from Wilson Avenue all the way sometimes down to where Jacobs, we turn off to go to Jacobs. And to me, it's time to think maybe we need to have a bypass. I mean, Shelbyville has one. I mean, Manchester has the interstate. As far as I know, Winchester has one. And to me, that'll help alleviate the traffic problem. I mean, a lot of people think, well, a bypass will take away from the business. You know, this is not 1990. You can pull out your phone and say, hey, Siri, where's McDonald's at? And it'll lead you right there. And the next thing that I've noticed, more so here in recent years, is I've had people move here from jobs, and they say, well, what is something that we can do here for fun? Well, we got to go to, I mean, there are fun things here to do, but it's kind of limited. I mean, you can go to Huntsville, go to Chattanooga, Murfreesboro, Nashville, but to me, we could have fun things here to do to attract young people, to attract young families. And why? Because all that money is going across county lines, we could stay here in Tullahoma. It could help fund our schools, roads, sidewalks, all that stuff. And to me, that's just a concern because I see less and less young people, especially single people, disappearing on the weekends. I've had people tell me Tullahoma's a magical land where everybody disappears on Friday evening and they'll turn back up on Sunday evening. And I've seen that firsthand. And it's concerning. I believe that we could, if we could attract the right things, and I'm all for small town feeling. I love small town. I've lived here my whole life. However, for me, the last expansion I saw of Tullahoma was when they built the new Walmart out there. Now, my mom, she said where the North Gate's at used to be all farmland, Army barracks, stuff like that. Okay, so they built them all in the 70s, had growth from then through the 80s, through the early 90s, and it seems like to me it just went stagnant. I mean, yes, we got Publix and we got Hobby Lobby, but instead of growth, I see just replacing. And that's not growth. To me, that's just, like I said, replacing, stagnant. And I just think that in order to keep people working here, people living here, you know, revenue here, we've got to provide those things. Attract businesses to Tullahoma. Basically, make them be breaking down the door to get a permit to build here in this town. Because we have very limited, like you said, major employers. Again, that's people going to other counties. And I just wanted to see if y'all have looked into that also, of attracting like stuff for young people here.
Yeah, and of course, we're really early into the process, so we're not at the point where we put, you know, pen to paper, but we've been hearing a lot of what you said, especially as far as things to do, not only for adults, but particularly teenagers, like that need some kind of an entertainment center. A lot of people have had very specific ideas on that. So yeah, so we'll definitely address that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Paul Schwer. We spoke on, I guess, Tuesday too. I'm just here to kind of advocate for probably the fragile road users. I would like to see Tullahoma with like a budding downtown industry area where people can come in on, you know, Sundays and shop, eat, socialize. And I think one of the issues with doing that is that Tullahoma is essentially, for lack of a better term, a strode, which is neither a street nor a road, and neither do any good. I would like to see, road diets, necking down things, changing traffic patterns such that, we can get out and move without being so car-centric. I think, in general, everyone's complaints about traffic can be alleviated by the less need of a car. Thank you.
Great. I can see Liesel scribbling down furiously, and I think those are a lot of her buzzwords. So thank you very much. Good. Oh, he's at a great height.
Got it. I got it. Yeah, I was about to complain about the same thing. Turn it around? Okay. Is that all right? Leave it like it is? Okay. All right.
Yeah, the camera guy is here.
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, my name is Jackie Duncan. My family's lived here for 100 years. I've been here 75 years of my life. I was here before Arnold Air Force Base was. I was here when it was Camp Forrest. That's where I was born, at Camp Forrest. So I've been around for a long time, and I've been blessed to. It's a great community, and I'm just grateful for it. People would ask me when I've met people over the years, "Where's Tullahoma?" I said, well, I said, you should know because you spend a lot of your tax dollars there. I said, it's the road to outer space. I'll tell them the road to outer space and infinity goes through Tullahoma, Tennessee. So anyway, that's my little slogan for them. But I'm wanting to preserve more of the history. And I think maybe not enough goes into that. We just had a couple of people over the last several years, quite a few years ago, Tommy Allen, who was one of the teachers and coaches at one of the middle schools, was a great historian. He did a lot of great work as far as uncovering history that nobody else had known about. And I don't know what's happened to all of his papers and records, and I've got a couple of books that he published, his class published over the years, and which were great assets to me right now, tools that I can help other people with, who people contact me a lot of times from out of town that need some help finding relatives or the historical records, and he's got that stuff all in his little book that he published, and I am just grateful for that every day, and I refer to it quite often. But the history of Camp Forrest, AEDC, University of Tennessee Space Institute, there are a lot of great things that go on in this area that a lot of people just don't know about. The average person visiting maybe would not know about. And I'd like to maybe see, I imagine, a sign as you come into Tullahoma, says from several different directions, every different direction, maybe says, "Welcome to Tullahoma." Said you're 10 minutes away from Arnold Air Force Base, the largest ground testing facility in the world. It used to be the largest ground test facility in the world. In fact, when I worked there for 34 years, retired from there, and my first job was in the propulsion wind tunnel, which was at that time the largest wind tunnel known to the free world. So there are a lot of great things around here, a lot of great history around here that I think just goes unnoticed. But I'd like to see something like that. Maybe say you're 10 minutes away from George Dickel, 15 minutes away from Jack Daniels, the greatest, and something attached to that, maybe the greatest the greatest whiskey in the world or something. Somebody had to have. And there's a new distillery set up over in Shelbyville where Nearest Green, the guy that taught Jack Daniel how to make whiskey, got a new distillery over there. So we are a hub for so many things and the aircraft museum out here. We are a hub for so many things. I can't name them all, but a lot of these businesses around here have been involved in the space industry for years. And so just about everything that's gone up in space has really come through Tullahoma pretty much. And so I've been a part of the Dream Tullahoma committee. We've had little airplanes, the mayor's part of it, that little aircraft hanging on the light poles around town for several years now. Mike Stanton started that up, retired coach at the high school. And still working on this committee, trying to brand Tullahoma as the city of aerospace, Tullahoma, city of aerospace excellence, like Huntsville is the rocket city, and other, some of the other bigger cities have big names. So, and I think that's what it kind of designs for. But we have Bonnaroo, and right now we've got other things that we are just a few minutes away from that are world-class operations, and that people would think about. And there are several groups that I know are working, and I don't know if we could maybe come together better, like Dream Tullahoma, the Chamber of Commerce. I worked with the Chamber of Commerce too on tourism several years ago, and like there's several organizations like the Tennessee Backroads Heritage Society. I've been hanging around them for a bunch of years now too. So anyway, they are in the same business of promoting this whole area, and just all the back roads, things that people don't know about for and this town, next town over, next town. It's this little community of towns around here that we are all trying to help promote. And as far as children, you know, I attended the other meeting at D.W. Wilson, and the other day, didn't get to say anything, but there was talk about, you know, the children when they leave here, you leave here to go to college, and a lot of them don't come back. Well, I did the same thing pretty much, and I know how that feels. And I thought when I graduated high school, this town's not big enough for me. You know, I'm out of here. You know, you want to go somewhere and see the world. And I found out after going to California for about a year, this was the best place in the world. And so I came back here, and I've been here ever since and been really satisfied. In fact, I loved it so much I wrote a poem about it. It's out on YouTube somewhere, Jackie Duncan, Tullahoma, Tennessee. And it's a nice little poem. It's got music in the background, got scenery in the background, and it's narrated. So anyway, but the young people leaving to go and find their dream, you know, in the world. And a lot of times your dream is just right here at home. That's what the poem actually talks about. And I think Fran and Dan Markham were ahead of their time with the incubator. They've had an incubator around here for years. But now the incubator thing, we just went through this COVID virus last year, or still going through it, in fact. But we learned a lot of things. I think that we need to set up incubators, and you can do whatever you want to do in a brick and mortar building. You can do it from an incubated area, or start out as an incubator. So I think our kids, if we can encourage them to go out and get that education and come back home, you know, and this is the place to live, because I've got Nashville an hour away if I want excitement. I got Chattanooga that way. I got Huntsville that way. And anytime I want to go somewhere for excitement and come back home to a sane place to live, you know, I come right on back here. I go and enjoy myself before else I come home, and I'm good. Drive through the whole town in 5 minutes. Oh, I love that. Don't spend my life in traffic, you know, and a lot of people do. They wind up spending 5 or 6 hours a day. Half of your life, when you calculate it, you spend in traffic somewhere. So I'm just, I would think like if we could have like a little mini visitor centers, like you go into Walmart and you see a big marquee there that has about different things you can see while you're in Tullahoma. Somebody that's visiting, maybe at the hotels, you know, if you're visiting, these are things that are within 10 minutes of here. And God, they're nice, so many good attractions, you know, and a lot of things we just don't even know about, really recognize ourselves. But anyway, that's pretty much my talk on it. I'm good, but I think Tullahoma has so much to offer, and more so than anywhere I've been that I care to stay, you know. But this is just an ideal place, and you've got excitement if you want to leave. And if you don't, you want peace and quiet, and I can see you sit at home and enjoy the night, and with the door half open sometimes, you know, so you don't have to worry about crime. Is not that bad. That's another thing I'm concerned about, you know, over the years when you start to really, really, really grow, and you get a lot of unwanted things. But we have a great situation around here, I'd say, and everything's working pretty good. So I'm pleased with that. That's just some of my thoughts on it.
Oops. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah, I saw a lot of heads nodding when he was talking about all the great attributes of this community, and that was great stuff. Thank you.
Excuse me, Josh Sudbury. I'm a resident of 1203 Fawn Street currently. If the city had about 10,000 more Jackie Duncans, your job would be a lot easier. And thank you for all the great things that you pointed out here. Jackie reminds me of my own grandfather from Gallatin, Tennessee, whose family cleared the trees up there, and so I understand the civic pride that you come to this with, and I'm very happy that you have it. It is amazing. We have been residents of Tullahoma for about 56 days. It has been, my wife grew up here. She's also a Tullahoma graduate. We just moved here from Brentwood. There are a ton of things that our children have been able to be involved in this city, and I'm very proud to say that. The questions that I have for this specific meeting, though, is I did not hear a lot about the use of the airport in the overall planning of the city in terms of its expansion, its role in growth, and its role in corporate recruiting. If you could speak to that, if you want to wait or speak to it now, that's fine.
Yeah, I guess all I would say at this point, since we're not, quite in the planning stage, we've heard a lot about it. In fact, I'm trying to remember, Randy, which one of our meetings we had where there were a lot. I mean, that was a big topic. Well, we had the airport authority and folks like that. But I think there's a lot of people feel the same way, that there are ways you can leverage it more that aren't being done right now. Right. Yep.
And look, there's FAA requirements and things for expansion or bringing more hangars there, but if you can accommodate, if the runway is long enough to accommodate commercial jets and traffic, you can do a lot of corporate recruiting that way. So I would hope that there's some forethought to the plan in the infrastructure.
And I think the runway's like 500 and some odd feet, or is that yards? No, I can't remember. But whatever it is, it has accommodated a 737.
Okay.
Before, like when, I don't know, president or vice president arrived. Yeah. But it would need, for real commercial, it would need to be lengthened, but that may be viable. So thank you.
There was a stat about Tullahoma losing a percentage of jobs in the microeconomic area. I was wondering if that is part of a rising tide raising the ships in other cities, or if that is a net loss across the areas that you mentioned in Franklin counties, Coffee County, and Moore County. So there was a stat that showed that Tullahoma's percentage of the jobs within the microeconomic area has gone from 40 to 29% over a period of 10 or 20 years. And I was curious if the percentage loss is simply because there are more jobs in the area generally, or if it is because over time Tullahoma has lost and others have gained respective to the cities.
Tullahoma has lost some jobs and the region has gained some jobs, so therefore the percentage is okay for both.
So the last thought I have is that Tullahoma is uniquely positioned within its own highway system, in that 55 does not come directly through town and 41 they don't meet at a T. It creates somewhat of a natural grid of downtown, which can be frustrating for traffic, but it can also be very usable for economic development. We are also located very close to the I-24 corridor, so I would hope that the plans incorporate an eye towards recruiting logistics firms that could utilize our 4155 corridor as well as our proximity to Nashville and Chattanooga as logistics and warehousing become a larger share of our economic scene here in the Southeast.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. And yeah, it would be great to have, we hear a lot about Manchester and they're being right on I-24, and that's, it's tough to compete with communities like that when it comes to mobility, logistics. But yeah, we'll take a look at that. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, well, got one more.
Hi, my name is Tisha Fritz. I have heard so much about beautification and traffic and all in areas relating to North Jackson in concentration. I feel like West Lincoln is something that I'm not hearing much of. And, working at the Chamber of Commerce, we hear a lot about, we don't have a square and, how that really hurts us. I feel like if we paid attention to the fact that North Jackson meets and joins West Lincoln and East Lincoln, and looking at that that cross section and focusing as we beautify it to not lose West Lincoln and East Lincoln, because they're the pathways to each of these, this quadrant as we're meeting at all these schools. It's like this is the cross that divides all of them. And so if we make them all beautiful and we show that the roads to each of these areas, are attractive and, great signage and, making sure there's something great in each of the quadrants and not just saying, well, North Jackson is great because that's prime real estate. I think that we should really make sure that as we're attracting all the things that we're talking about in industry and retail and fun, let's make sure to distribute that throughout the community and not just focus on North Jackson.
Very good, thank you. We agree with that. All right. Anybody? Sure.
I'm Florence Hull. I live at 304 South Jackson Street. And of course, I've been here all my life. I run a business. Talking to the microphone. Okay. Okay, I live here at 304 South Jackson. I run a business. I've been here all my life. And I love Tullahoma. I was raised loving Tullahoma. But I do see that we do need to work. My big thing is I feel like we need to work together and appreciate the things that we do have that are positive and try to help each other work with that so that we can all work together, bringing new in, but also appreciating what we do have in this town. And I'm on a committee now that we're trying to push Eat, shop, what is it? Eat, shop, play, Tullahoma. And I mean, we just need to realize the good things we do have, which I could go on and on about that, as far as schools, our South Jackson Civic Center, our Fine Arts Center, our things that we do, wonderful Friday night football. I think it's Thursday night now, but anyway, football. But, but we all need to also try to educate our children and our parents and people that if we want all of this, we have to try to take care of things by, I think we have a terrible mess with trash. We don't seem to pick up good. And years ago, there was a Tennessee trash commercial that if you are about my age, you remember the old guy in the convertible throwing stuff out. Well, I think we need to get back to some of that and some fines. It's just terrible the way we don't take care of our place. And then I think we need to educate people that, yes, we want all of this, but if we don't spend our tax money does not follow us home from Nashville or Murfreesboro or Chattanooga or wherever. It is. If you buy shoes from me, that tax money stays in Tullahoma. I had to throw that in, but we just need to all realize, we have to take some ownership of our little town, and we don't want it to. We're getting new people moved to town every day, and so many of them are like, we don't want it to become a big city or all the things that they've left their cities for. We want it, but somehow we do need to get some of this done, and I hope we can do it and not just let it collect dust.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Jennifer Wendell, and I've attended just about all of these meetings except for one that I missed, and I apologize if I am repeating something that has already been said, but I think one thing that has been overlooked, we are presented with zoning for all areas of the city, but I think we should acknowledge that in some cases zoning has not worked. For example, areas that are deemed commercial have been an obvious failure, such as, I'll give you a specific example, North Anderson between Highway 55 and Lincoln. There's like a whole thing of strip malls that obviously is unoccupied, it's not put to good use. So I would recommend that the Planning Commission be agile. And agile is a specific term that's used in software development, and that is when one approach is not working, you actually do change horses in the middle of a stream. So I could see that place, well, not only that, I have ideas there. For example, that little strip mall, I think one thing was said was, well, with regard to housing, it's much more expensive to build from the ground up than it is to using existing structures. If anybody were to look behind that strip mall, there is a huge area behind there, and I could even see, if that were allowed to be residential, you have a whole bunch of townhomes, and in the back there's enough room for a swimming pool and a clubhouse and parking. So that's just one example. Another thing is the revitalization of downtown, and coming up with HUD, I forget her name, at any rate. What she says is very true. We should learn to appreciate the things that we already have and make something out of them, take care of them. And I'll give you another example, and that is the old building that was used for tanning, this big old red brick building. That would be a really cool, hip kind of industrial apartment complex and would bring people to, I'm assuming there's parking behind where the workers, had to park. Where if that were like a residential thing, you would immediately increase foot traffic to downtown. Really for the Planning Commission to re-examine all dead zones, dead commercial zones, and see what kind of alternative use could be put there. Like, I threw this out, it might sound crazy, but where Ollie's is, you've got a huge parking lot there, that's a dead zone pretty much. Why not think of putting housing, some kind of an apartment complex there where you already have parking, and again, you increase foot traffic to downtown. So, in summary, I think if the Planning Commission were agile and would consider mixed use zoning, where you have residential and commercial, and that then would increase the walkability index. Tullahoma has a very low walkability index. I think it's like at 20 or something. You can Google it and find out. But really successful, healthy communities are often defined by mixed use and walkability, which contributes to that. So that's basically it. Consider mixed use, walkability, and thinking creatively about the existing properties we already have.
Thank you. That's great stuff. And as I'm sure you know, 1950s and 60s, a lot of zoning that was done was, it's the opposite of what we're trying to do nowadays. It was all about separating uses. So you live in this zone, you work in this zone, you shop in this zone. And what does that do? It means you drive everywhere, right? And, there were very few, if any, mixed-use zones. But now we're kind of going back. We're seeing the problems. I mean, for example, just the linear, to have a corridor like Jackson that's nothing but primarily commercial, that's a bad shopping experience, right? You can't walk, you're getting in your car, you go to one place, you drive down, you go to the next place, and you just have this long linear form of commercial, which is a bad pattern. So yeah, we'll definitely try to remedy that to the extent that we can. But any other, yes? Oh, two more at least, all right.
Hello, I will be very brief. I know so many of you all in here. My name is Candy Couch, and I want to write on the shirt tail of what Florence said and what Jackie Duncan said. Yes, we have a wonderful blessing. We have a treasure in Tullahoma. Most of us are here, and I think probably all of us are here because we choose to be here. And I see a lot of nods, which makes me very happy. The word home is in the word Tullahoma, and I'm very proud to be from here. I have, as my daddy would say when someone says, I've lived here all my life, not yet, but I'm working on it. Okay. But anyway, we have a new friend who has been here for 56 days, someone else who's been here for 4 years, and to me, we all want to be here and be a part of this. And we need to take care of each other and support each other, whether we have a business or we don't. We have this wonderful group that has come here to try to help us pull it together, and I think it's important for us to at least listen to what they have to say and give them the opportunity to help us. And yes, I think we should implement and hold everybody accountable for what they're trying to do. But anyway, our new friend that's here, that's been here for 56 days, I just happened to see him at South Jackson, the ice cream social. They had just moved back here, and they saw it in the paper. They just wanted to come and be a part. So there you go. There's a shining example of what it means to be a part of this wonderful community. Thank you.
Thank you. Excellent.
My name is Christy Coleman, and I stay at an apartment in Tullahoma. No one's going to know. But I'm up here just to ask for people that are granted a Section 8 voucher. There's absolutely nowhere to use that voucher. Absolutely no landlord wants to deal with it or anything. So that voucher to help families get in a home is null and void because no landlord wants to take it. The only apartments that do take it are considered projects, the Village, and all that other. And I don't think that having a Section 8 voucher valued at $1,000 for a home should be put used to live in the Village. I think that Tullahoma needs to work together and have housing for this Section 8 voucher. Nothing is wrong with the voucher. You have great people that are on the voucher that cannot rent in Tullahoma. Also, on the east side of Tullahoma, by Piggly Wiggly, you say that the town is beautiful, but if you cross the railroad tracks, you can see for yourself, it is not beautiful on the east side. Where Piggly Wiggly's store used to be, there needs to be another grocery store. The people don't have anywhere to shop. So that could be an improvement. Section 8 housing vouchers can be an improvement. Also, I'm not sure if this has anything to do with it, but there's no bus system in Tullahoma. And a lot of times on Wednesdays, the kids are getting out at 1 o'clock in high school. They need a bus system. I'm tired of taking off work every single 1 o'clock Wednesday because there's not a bus to pick up the kid and drop them where they need to be. There definitely needs to be some sort of transportation for the students. There definitely need to be east side to be looked at, a grocery store over there, and all around Tullahoma, especially on the west side. The Section 8 voucher needs to be looked at and accepted with landlords. Right now, it is not, and it looks like the Section 8 voucher is something's wrong with it. Nothing's wrong with it. So I'm just here to say the bus system needs to come to Tullahoma. The east side needs to be upgraded because you have the majority of the police on the east side, and then you come to the west side and there's no police. So they are targeting the east side community, and I think that's unfair. So that's mine.
Okay, thank you very much. And some of those issues we've been hearing a lot about, the bus issue and the need for more diversity and affordability with housing. So thank you. Anybody else? All right. Oh, got one more? Yes, please.
How you doing, Phil?
Great. How are you?
I'm great. I'm Elmore Torbert. I pastor Mount Zion Church, and Jackie Duncan is my star member. So I'm excited to hear him expound on how wonderful Tullahoma is. And I guess to share, I've been here now I've been working here and serving as pastor for about almost going into my 15th year, and lived here in various capacities. I believe that what would help improve the livability for Tullahoma would be, well, let me reiterate that mixed use zoning that they're doing in some suburban areas would be great. Specifically speaking, would be in, right south of Nashville. They did apartment complexes around shops. So I think what she said, the young lady who just came before me, that just sounds perfect. That would be ideal. Also, let's look at eliminating those food deserts. When Piggly Wiggly left, they did move in a Dollar General, but there's no dedicated grocery store. Here's the key word, because we're fighting it in my home city in Flint, Michigan. There's no store there that serve or sells fruits, vegetables, and healthy living foods. And so what that does is that pushes that side of town to get something quick, like I don't know if I can say it, well, I'll say it and you edit it, like Totino's, pizza rolls, and all that other stuff, so that they can get a quick bite instead of preparing something healthy for families. Another thing I think would be really, really advantageous would be to attempt to attract more medical specialists for this area. So since I've been here, it seems with the numbers that you've just given and with the 2020 census, the population has increased about 4,000. I think with that comes the need for more medical specialists. If there's a way that we can attract more medical specialists, that would be ideal. Also, with that increase of population, if we could have a transportation campaign for emergency vehicles. It is a sad plight, and it's a selfish thing that happens here in Tullahoma, and I don't think people really understand it. But I saw it 2 days in a row just a couple of weeks ago on Jackson Street, where the ambulance was trying to get to a particular place, and the traffic was moving along with the ambulance, and it couldn't navigate through traffic to get. I think we need to do a campaign about stop and wait or something. When you hear the siren, stop or something, whatever clever campaign we can do to reinforce that we want our emergency vehicles to be able to assist residents that are having an emergency. Lastly, I want to reiterate that housing Section 8 vouchers, I think that would be great and advantageous for our younger people that are getting established, moving out, getting their first apartment, their first rental home, their first whatever it is. I think that'd be very advantageous and something that we can look into. And I conclude, as I'm taught in seminary to say, in conclusion, I believe Tullahoma is an amazing, wonderful place. I've graduated 3 kids here, and I have enjoyed the fact that my kids got a firm, strong foundation, and I did not have to worry about them. And so my hat goes off to Tullahoma, and I love Tullahoma as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Wow, we've heard some uplifting things. I love it. I think this is a great time to transition, if you're okay with it, to we'll man and woman our little stations here on issues, and feel free to hang around. Oh, and the dot exercise, don't forget that. The map in the back that's on the wall, if you don't mind just following the instructions on what the colors are for like where you live and where you work or where you recreate, whatever. But Winston's over there in charge of that. So thank you so much for being here. This was the best meeting, I thought. This was great. Well attended, fantastic comments, and thank you so much.
Because of Jackie Duncan.
I didn't hear that. Yeah, not like that.